and welcome to another edition of Global Sports Report here on Arise News. A wide-ranging show today. We'll have all the latest plus analysis in the studio from special guest Ernest Opuni and our very own Ben Uwadia. First, though, this is what we have in store today. Diego Costa feeling unwanted and not needed at Premier League champions Chelsea. Speculation continues to mount over the striker's future. We'll be assessing where he could be finding his new home shortly. And the joking's over for Djokovic. The French Open champion crashes out in spectacular fashion at Roland Garros. Will he be taking a break from the court? And to borrow a famous tennis term, it's almost game, set and match in the NBA Finals. The Golden State Warriors look dominant. Can they be stopped? We'll be debating that later in the show too. Transfer news first, though, from the world of football, and he's the defender everyone in the Premier League wants this summer. But Virgil van Dijk's move to Liverpool appears to be off. The Reds have publicly apologised to his current club Southampton over allegations they tapped the Dutchman up for a proposed £60 million move. Southampton were angry over claims the player's interest had been swung in a meeting with Jurgen Klopp, which Premier League rules forbid. With Liverpool's interest cooled, an investigation into the matter is now unlikely, but Van Dijk continues to be linked with moves elsewhere to Chelsea, Arsenal and Manchester City. Chelsea striker Diego Costa has revealed that Blues boss Antonio Conte has told him he's no longer part of his plans for next season. Costa was speaking to reporters after his Spanish side drew 2-2 with Colombia in a friendly. The 28-year-old striker was told via a text message that he could not be counted on for next season. Costa has scored 20 goals in 35 Premier League games this season, helping Chelsea towards the Premier League title. Paul Pogba has been speaking about Manchester United's manager Jose Mourinho in glowing terms. The midfielder, who moved to United from Juventus for a world record fee of £89 million, claims that Mourinho's ability to do extreme things is what makes him the so-called special one. His first season back at Old Trafford saw United finish 6th, but qualify for the Champions League by winning the Europa League. The club also won the League Cup. While United are expected to be busy in the transfer market over the next couple of months, and one man who doesn't appear to be convinced, though, to go to Old Trafford is Alvaro Morata. The Real Madrid striker confirmed he wants to stay at the Bernabeu. United have made signing the Spaniard a priority this summer and have had one bid of around £52 million turned down by Madrid. Jose Mourinho handed Morata his debut in Spain at the age of 18 and believes he can fill the vacant centre-forward role at the club. The 24-year-old scored 20 goals for Madrid last season. Manchester City have signed Brazilian goalkeeper Ederson from Portuguese club Benfica. The move has now been confirmed by the Premier League club. They didn't release the details of the fee, but media reports have placed the value of the deal at £34.7 million, which would be a British record for a goalkeeper. The transfer has prompted speculation over the futures now of that man there, Joe Hart, and Claudio Bravo. Alexis Sanchez could be poised to complete a move to Manchester City in the coming days. The Arsenal forward could also have been going to Bayern Munich as a possible destination there, but according to Spanish journalist Gerard Romero, who has a proven track record of transfers involving Pep Guardiola and his time at Man City, Sanchez would prefer to remain in England and join the Manchester club. Sanchez has only a year remaining on his contract at Arsenal, and boss Arsene Wenger has been adamant they intend to keep the Chilean star at the club. Well, I'm joined in the studio now by sports analysts Ernest Opuni and Ben Uwadia. Gents, I am lagging in the dress department today, I've got to say. You're holding it well. I'll up the game next time we're on together, I promise. Let's start with Virgil van Dijk then. So, Ernest, to you first then. Was this a complete mess-up then from Liverpool in the way that they've tried to bring him in?
I suspect so. I mean, it's never unusual if a club is interested in a player to perhaps try and build some kind of a personal relationship, and it's quite clear that I suppose Jurgen Klopp's the kind of manager that had probably starts to build some of that link. But there's a point at which the minute you're going to actually try and do business, those conversations have got to be very carefully managed. I think the fact that, as you mentioned, Liverpool have backed off and they're not likely to actually be charged suggests perhaps they haven't completely strayed over the line, but it's the suggestion of it. And it leaves things a bit awkward for Van Dijk in terms of actually what he does next. If he doesn't move, how comfortable he's going to be staying at Southampton, and yeah, it's a bit unsettling for him, really, I'd have thought.
Ben, your thoughts on it? I mean, it must be awkward, as Ernest says, for Van Dijk now, because it's sort of like he's clearly made his thoughts clear about him wanting to go to Anfield and play with Klopp, but it looks like Liverpool aren't going to bring him in now. So what happens to Van Dijk now? Does he stay at Southampton? Who else would he go to?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very difficult one. And I think what makes it even more painful is that he has captained the Southampton side as well. So for your captain to pretty much probably say, I don't really want to be part of you guys, I want to go somewhere else, it's a bit awkward for him to now return back to Southampton. For me, for Liverpool, it's very strange. All Liverpool have to say is that we want you, here is our bid. 100% Van Dijk would say, I want to go. So this didn't really have to be done behind closed doors because, again, Liverpool, because they're a bigger club, it's a destination they want to go to. And they're a team who really are on the up based on next season and the excitement of club. They could have just done this through official channels and they would have gotten their man. And this is very bad for Liverpool because I think that Van Dijk is a player that would have really improved them because he was a critical player based on how they've been defensively deficient this past season.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's move on to Diego Costa now, another man who's seemingly unwanted at Chelsea. I mean, with Costa, Ernest, you've got to look at him and you think he scores goals. You know, he's a problem for defenders to deal with. Yeah. Why would Chelsea not want to keep him?
Going back to July of last year, the start when Conte arrived was actually quite uneasy because I think he made a statement along the lines of, yes, I can confirm Costa is a Chelsea player today and he's a Chelsea player for this year. Ask me beyond that, I cannot confirm. And to be perfectly honest, there wasn't on anybody's horizon any prospect that Costa wasn't going to be around. So that probably has rumbled on its way through the season. And towards the end of the season, Costa did, in some regards, become a bit of a marginal figure in terms of as the progression went on into the title. And the way, if it has happened by text, is extremely clunky. And it may just be that Conte's always had something else in the back of his mind about that situation, and it's maybe just coming to the fore.
And is Lukaku the man to fill the void if he does go?
I'm not really sure about Lukaku. For me, I think that, really the hottest striker is really Morata. I think they need a far more mobile striker there. But going back to Costa, I think the thing about Costa is that, again, he had a period where he was really one of the best striker in the Premier League. But then he then faltered. And I think that with the mobility and the way that you have Hazard and William play, I don't think Costa is the right fit. But you now go back to a few months back when there was that training ground bus stop, where, again, I think allegedly, Conte said to Costa, if you want to go to China, go to China. So then people were saying, thinking about, does Costa really want to stay in the club? So I feel that, doing by text, it is a bad move, but we do not know the full story. We don't know how relationship has broken down. And Costa even said that he doesn't have a good relationship with Conte to begin with. So this makes sense if both parties don't like each other and there's been a frosty relationship. So I think really this is the only sensible thing to do because Chelsea have already said we want a new striker. And again, if you bring in a Lukaku, Costa doesn't really fit into that framework.
And if he was to leave, would he go to China straight away? Would he go to a club in Europe first, do you think? I mean, there's AC Milan, there's talk of AC Milan being keen on him. I'm sure he'd do a job for many teams across the continent, wouldn't he?
He wouldn't struggle. And I suppose if the situation was a bit more straightforward with Atletico Madrid, then they might be in play as well because he's had a really good time with them in the past. I suppose it just depends upon the motivation for his next move. China, certainly, there'll be a few more zeros on the end of his salary. And if that's a driver, then that makes sense. But there's a danger almost, when you go to China, I'm not sure how easy it is then to come back to the elite level.
But then look, he's going to earn the money because when you go to China, it's about, you know what, I'm just here to earn money. So if the money's there, fine, get those zeros because you know that you're not going to come back to elite playing. So it's about the money. So
true, yeah. Let's move on to Alexis Sanchez now, another man who looks increasingly like he's off as well this summer. I mean, Bayern Munich sort of making strong noises to sign him, but also, according to this latest source, Ben, from the journalist who's close to Romero, who's close to Guardiola, he thinks that Manchester City could come in for him. Can you see a situation where Arsenal would let him go to City?
Well, Arsenal have a track record of actually selling players to their rivals. Van Persie, Fabregas, Clichy, Sanya, to City as well. For me, Sanchez strikes me as someone who actually respects Arsenal and actually has enjoyed his time there. So for me, this doesn't really make any sense for Sanchez to go to Man City. And also, if you rewind back a few years when Sanchez was at Barcelona, there was an incident where Sanchez came off injured and Guardiola berated him. So again, I do not understand how Sanchez would want to work for a manager who pretty much, with the help of Messi, forced you out of Barcelona. Bayern Munich, you are guaranteed at least one title every season, which is the Bundesliga. You're playing with Arturo Vidal, your compatriots, and Bayern Munich need you far more than City need you. So I think Bayern Munich just makes far more sense than to Man City.
Gents, that's all we've got time for in this part of the show. Thanks very much indeed. Still to come, regrets in the ring. Vladimir's big brother says he's to blame for the heavyweight fighter's loss for the title belts against Anthony Joshua. Now on to tennis, and Novak Djokovic will head to Wimbledon outside the world's top 2 for the first time in 6 years. He was comprehensively outplayed and outfought in a straight sets defeat to Dominic Thiem in the quarterfinals of the French Open. The Serb lost in straight sets and has refused to rule out taking a break from the sport. In the final set, which lasted just 20 minutes, Djokovic won only 8 points, which prompted commentators to suggest he'd given up. The defending champion hit back at suggestions the defeat was down to new coach Andre Agassi not being present during the match. Well, things are looking up, though, for Andy Murray after his win over Kei Nishikori. Murray reached his 21st Grand Slam semi after dropping the first set against the Japanese player. A subsequent argument with the umpire restored his fire as he went on to take the next 3 sets, the final one with the loss of just 1 game. The world number 1 will now take on Stan Wawrinka in the final 4 tomorrow. To boxing now, and Vitaly Klitschko says he blames himself for brother Vladimir's loss to Anthony Joshua at Wembley back in April. Vladimir recovered brilliantly after being knocked down in the 5th round to put Joshua on the canvas in the 6th. Vitaly, who was in Vladimir's corner for the fight, advised his brother to not rush and take his time, as he felt Joshua's muscle mass would make him struggle as the fight wore on. Looking back, Vitaly says he would have advised Vladimir to finish Joshua off earlier. There we go. We'll get to that in a moment. But let's talk tennis first then, boys. So Djokovic is really looking out of sorts at the moment, isn't he? I mean, crumbling like he did against Dominic Thiem. Ernest, what do you think is going wrong for Djokovic at the moment? Because he has just appointed a new coach, Andre Agassi. Whether that's just sort of, you know, a bit of masking tape over the cracks, I mean, it's hard to tell. But, I mean, there is clearly a fundamental problem here, isn't there?
There is, and if you really take it back, it's probably about this time last year, although we probably didn't pick up the signs. He achieved a career Grand Slam. And that was pretty much him having put himself in a position that he's an all-time great for that reason. I wondered whether motivation became a bit of an issue for him. He then had a bit of a quiet sort of summer, latter part of the summer into the autumn, and then made a real bid to try and get back to number 1, because obviously Andy Murray had this stupendous end to this season. And I thought, particularly in London at the year-end Masters, that was a particular thing where that loss devastated him. You then forward into Australia, he goes out in the 2nd round to Istomin, and suddenly you're starting to see a player who's unsettled. But it's particularly when he got rid of Marian Vida, and, I mean, Becker, fair enough, they'd have a few years, 3 years together, but Vida's been there for, like, at least a decade. I thought, actually, this is a player who's now looking for something different, but I was never convinced he knew what it was he's looking for. Agassi is a great name, but is it a great match for what he's looking for? And yeah, there does seem to be a bit of a lack of direction, probably in his own mind, and that showed up yesterday when he lost to Thiem. Certainly, even just if he's a slightly bit off the best of his game, there's a big difference between like him 90% and 100, and that's what we're seeing.
And this is the thing, Ben. At one point, 2 or 3 years ago, Djokovic just looked like he was invincible, didn't he? No one could get near him. He was winning every tournament. So there's a chink in the armour now, and that's spreading, it seems. Do you think he can get back on track? He's talking about taking some time off from the court as well.
You know, for me, I think Ernest is being far too nice on Djokovic. Really, I mean, if you want to be called elite, you have to be strong mentally. And for me, Djokovic, he's proven that you can't even be put in the same stratosphere as Federer or Sampras.
But what about what he's done over the last 3 years? You know, he was unbeatable for such a long time.
It doesn't matter. You need to give me at least 5 or 6 years dominance before we can now put you in the same category as Federer. The way he's losing matches, how unprofessionally he's losing matches, the amount of ways that he's lost in early rounds. I'm sorry, you're not an elite player. You may have had a good time when you were doing good, but you need to give me 5-6 years dominance in the way that Becker did, the way that Sampras did, the way that McEnroe did, the way that Federer and Nadal did as well. So by doing this shows you that mentally, you're not in it. And remember, with professional sports, it's 50% physical, 50% mental. You have to have mental toughness. And the way, because when you look at the issue with Djokovic is when it's not going his way, he does give up. Because it's like, it's not going in there, and you just give up. But you can't do that as a professional player. Federer or Sampras, even when they were losing, they will still fight on to the very last point. So for Djokovic, mentally, he shows that he's mentally weak. So I'm sorry, there is no chance of him getting back to the best because tennis has changed, because it is far more competitive. So for Djokovic, being talked to as an elite player, it's never going to happen.
Wow, big words from Ben there.
Absolutely huge.
I mean, Andy Murray, you look at Andy Murray, he's had his struggles too this year. He's had problems with injuries. They've both had the same injury, incidentally, in the elbow. So they both had their problems at the start of 2017. But Andy Murray is he's looking all right at the moment, but he again was struggling in some of the earlier tournaments this year. Do you think Murray can be classed as an elite player? Because surely this now is Murray's time to shine when Djokovic isn't so good and Federer's ageing but still half decent, and Nadal isn't as good as he used to be on grass.
Yeah,
even though they're playing on clay right now.
Indeed, and I suppose referring to your word elite, quite key for me is this is when you'd want to see Murray growing into a tournament, because he's had a bit of a ropey time on the clay, and we know he wasn't very well. But I think I was hoping, and I may have suggested when we spoke last about it, that I thought if he got through the first week, he could grow into the tournament. The nervy match for me was when he actually had to come up against Del Potro at the weekend. That would have been, well, major banana skin, but he got through it, and then his next round where he cruised, and now actually Nishikori is a nasty player to play against on any surface. He's on the up. And it's a pick whichever one you want against Wawrinka, especially seeing as it's a replay of last summer's French Open semi-final. First time he beat him on clay, and you know it's a 50-50. Wawrinka's playing explosive tennis, but Murray is on the ascendancy. So he's in a good place, a better place certainly than Novak.
And this man has his stuff as well. He used to be captain of his university tennis team, Ernest.
Oh,
there we go. Thank you very much, guys. Much appreciated. Still to come on the programme, we've got an amazing trick from Brazilian superstar Neymar to show you, and who comes out top of the tree in the latest compilation for the world's highest paid sports stars. On to basketball now, and the Golden State Warriors are inching closer to reclaiming their NBA crown and possibly creating history as their 118-113 win over the Cavaliers puts them 3-0 up in the series, as they're yet to lose a game in the playoffs so far. The Cavaliers performed far better than they did in the first two games, with LeBron James and Kyrie Irving combining for 77 points. But the Warriors showed their quality yet again, and Kevin Durant continued his exceptional finals performance, finishing the night with 31 points, including a pivotal three-pointer when the Warriors were down by 1. In the annual Forbes Rich List, basketball players dominate, but the man to beat is still from the world of soccer. It's this man here, Cristiano Ronaldo, the Real Madrid forward who leads the pack for the second year running. Ronaldo, who scored 2 in Real's Champions League triumph over Juventus on Saturday, made $93 million in the past year, $58 million from his soccer salary and $35 million from endorsements. The Cleveland Cavaliers forward LeBron James is second on the list with $86.2 million. There's Barca forward Lionel Messi with $80 million, and tennis player Roger Federer there on $64 million, and Golden State Warriors forward Kevin Durant on $60.6 million. That rounds up the top 5. Well, one man on the top 20 of that list is Barca striker Neymar, and the Brazilian, along with the help of US chat show host Jimmy Kimmel, brought Hollywood Boulevard in LA to a standstill. In the latest stunt for the show, Neymar attempts to clear the width of the street and score a goal. Check this out.
All right, let's take another look. Here's the ball. He had the distance, and right in the corner of the net. Pass.
Ernest and Ben are still with me. Reckon you could score a goal like that, guys?
Oh, easily, very easily. Yeah, that looks easy.
It was impressive, though. The trajectory had to be. I mean, if you think about how light the balls are, he got the height, the distance, and the keeper, might want to forget that one, I guess.
But it actually reminds me of his goal against PSG, like that free kick, where managed to have the dip right into the corner. So I mean, Neymar just shows you what kind of player that he is and the kind of ability that he has.
Yeah, that's right. Good stunt. Good stunt. Let's talk about the NBA then. So, Ben, the Golden State Warriors, they just look unstoppable at the moment. Is there any chance of them losing this finals game?
I mean, no, it's over. The Warriors are the champions. The only thing is, do they do a sweep or does it go in 5? In the history of the NBA, for the 71 year of history, there's never been a team that has gone through the playoffs unbeaten. So if the Warriors do this, this could be historical, and I think they could do it because, again, there's been no team like this ever who have 2 MVPs in their team. So I just think that for the Cavaliers, this is an impossible task for them to come back from this.
Yeah. What do you think of how the NBA has been going so far, then, Ernest? With the Warriors, they have steamrolled at every team so far. Who would you sort of look at and think, in their team is some of the the best players that they have?
It very much, from the bits that I've picked up, seems to have been like a major kind of collective, I think. And you kind of get a sense about a team quite early on in the season as to how they're going to actually pick up and maintain momentum. And I think you could literally just point at any number of the folks that turn up on the court and it wouldn't really matter. It's that there's almost like a DNA of we're winning this thing, and actually the opponents are thinking, yeah, you are going to win. And that's a very heady combination for them.
Yeah. You look at sort of the rich list as well. Basketball players, Ben, dominate the top 10 in that. 4 basketball players. So you've got James Harden, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and LeBron.
Yeah.
Why do basketball players make so much money? How are they sort of capitalising to become the world's richest sportsman?
It's all thanks to Michael Jordan, because Jordan, he changed it. Because what Jordan did from basketball was like, yeah, I know I'm a sports person, but let me branch out. Let me expand. And I think ever since Jordan, basketball has become more than a sport. It's the only American sport which has really exported globally. And I think what LeBron, Steph have taken, you know what? I can go out and let me look at this football team. Let me make a shoe. Let me make a shirt. And they say, let me actually brand myself. So what you're seeing from basketball stars now is people who they combine with rap and hip hop. They are connected with the kids. They are cool. They're contemporary. Look at their fashion sense. So they're almost bigger than the sport itself, and it has given the sport that extra kind of pizzazz and je ne sais quoi, which other sports don't really have. So I think that's why LeBron, Durant have become so big, because they're looking beyond themselves and really selling themselves in ways that can be used in a multitude of ways in different media, which is why I think they have more to them than, let's say, football players or players in another sports.
It's a good point. So it's almost like the sports stars in basketball, Ernest, are bigger than the NBA organisation itself when it comes to branding and commercial appeal.
Absolutely. But again, it's also, if you think about the size of the market just within the United States, yes, basketball has been exported as a major sport elsewhere, but actually you could park that. And just the market in the United States alone, and the opportunities for things off court to actually influence your earning capacity and the endorsements. I mean, everybody in sport has got something to thank. Certainly, Jordan is one of them. But Muhammad Ali is probably the first person that made you think actually a sports person can transcend the sport that initially made them famous. And since then, obviously, it's really an impossible thing to put a cap on. Goodness knows where it's going to get to.
They still have to beat the main man at the moment, though, Cristiano Ronaldo. He's top of the tree again, second year in a row.
That's because of his underwear line, really. So,
and the abs range that he's as well, that I see all over Facebook. And he's also the face of the FIFA 2018 as well, isn't he? So video games are also a huge part of how they make money too, aren't they?
Yeah, I think it's huge. But I think Kelechi Iheanacho should have been the face for FIFA 18. So I just think that's unfair. So
there we go.
I'm sure they'll listen and change that.
No, they will. FIFA 19, hopefully.
We'll see. Good stuff, guys. Thank you very much indeed. Cheers. And that's it from this edition of Global Sports Report here on Arise News. Coming to you from London. Many thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.